Breath of Fire Dragon Core has got to be one of the greatest RPGs in my opinion. But as much as I hate to admit it, there are many reasons why people have considered it the black sheep of its franchise, and by that I mean the most hated game of its franchise. To be quite honest, I have never actually played any of the previous Breath of Fire games, so I can't really judge them by comparison. One of the reasons that make this game the most hated, and probably the biggest reason, is the D counter. Before I continue any further, just a quick warning. There will be many spoilers of this game. Yes, I'm aware the game is 22 years old, but remember that this game is quite underrated and barely anyone knows about it. I mean, with only 1.9k followers of it on Twitch, it is not a big game that ever saw the light of day. But back to business. So in some of the Breath of Fire games, I believe 3, 4, and 5, the main protagonist, Ryu, gains the ability to transform into a dragon throughout the story. In Dragon Core's scenario, Ryu first makes a link with a large dragon known as Ajin, which gives him his abilities. Then he finally unlocks the power of the worm before the first fight against Bosch. Now that Ryu transformed into this dragon, we have access to some insane perks. For one, moving around the battlefield in this form no longer consumes AP. We also have access to 3 incredibly powerful moves: Vortex, Hurricane, and Twister. We also have D-Charge, which is an attack boost that can be overlapped a linear amount of times, and D-Breath, a laser-like move that blasts for a linear amount of time. All of these perks are powerful and awesome as hell, but it comes at a great price. Upon transforming for the first time, the first thing you may immediately notice is the counter you see at the top right underneath a blue hexagon. Whenever you transform into the Dragonized form, use an attack from that form or D-dash outside of battle, the counter will increase. You'll even notice the color within the hexagon change color as the counter gets closer and closer to 100%. Sadly, the counter can even increase even when not transformed or dashing, but it only increases by 1.01% about every 20 steps or so. And note that the D counter never existed in the previous games, which explains why this game is the most hated, among other things. Alright, y'all are probably asking, what happens if the counter reaches 100%? If you allow the D counter to reach 100% throughout the course of the game, the following cutscene initiates an immediate game over. To be quite honest, it is actually not difficult to conserve the D counter. As long as you're not constantly transforming or using the D-dash, you should be fine. Which is why I will be explaining a guide on how to use the D counter safely. A quick note, you will want to save at least a minimum of 13% of your D counter for a later fight, which I will explain later in the video. But first, I'll explain what battles you should use it in if you have to. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. The second boss fight in the game, which is against Bosch and 2 rangers, will be one of the easiest boss fights of the game. But keep the thought in mind, you will automatically transform into the Dragonized form for the first time, and you cannot revert back to normal for the rest of the fight, thus being unable to conserve the D counter. Plus, the counter automatically starts at 1% as you transform, but luckily, it's pretty easy to conserve your D counter here. First, don't bother using Ryu against the other 2 rangers. Instead, have Nina and Lin take care of them as they are not too hard to defeat. With Ryu, you can use 2 twisters on Bosch and he'll easily be defeated. After this, defeat the other rangers with Nina and Lin until the battle is over. The D counter may be guaranteed to increase once more as you advance to the next turn, but if you complete the fight under these specific steps, you should complete this fight with the D counter at 5.50%, which is quite decent. All in all, if you can finish this fight with the D counter under at least 10%, you should be fine. At one point in the game, when you arrive at Indus 2, you will fight Tantra the Assassin. Do not use your D counter on him for now, it will not be a difficult fight. After you defeat him, you will gain a key card which can open the 2 locked doors in the room. Each of them will lead you to an important sub-boss fight. If you go left, you will fight Dagon, a fast enemy that can counter attacks with a close enough range. If you go right, you will fight Jijigai, a slow enemy but with very high defense. Like Tantra, do not use your D counter on any of them. They can be defeated without it, but only use a tiny bit on Jijigai if you really want to breeze through it. The fight up ahead will be against Tantra again, only this time he absorbs the power of one or both of his fallen comrades. Whichever one he absorbs, he will gain the abilities of that enemy. But when I played it, I fought both Dagon and Jijigai, making him absorb both of them, and thus taking all of their abilities. If you choose to fight him like this, then you can use the D-dive if you wish. I did not use it during this fight as I found it unnecessary, so like Jijigai, only use the D-dive in this fight if you absolutely want to breeze through it. And if you use the D-dive, use a minimum of 10% of the D counter. Remember that ending a turn in this form also increases the counter by 1.50%, so keep that in mind. Once you make it past the lifeline area, you will fight Bosch for the second time, only now he has the power of a dragon and is much stronger than before. He'll occasionally kill someone during a turn, which is why you must have plenty of heals and especially tonics. He will also heal at the end of every turn, which is why you must be dealing damage as much as possible to him per turn. You can D-dive if you want to breeze through this fight, as it will be quite long and tedious without it, but a great method to do this fight without the transformation is Ryu's Discharge move, an attack that banks all of the damage dealt to Ryu, then deals it all back once this move is initiated. Which is why you must occasionally let Bosch attack him to bank the damage. Just remember to have plenty of healing items. If you don't know, you can find this move within the old trade sector after joining Lin and while Nina is still in the hospital wing. Note that I completed this boss fight off screen, so I cannot show my personal footage of succeeding this fight. While you are in the center, you will fight Vexacion and his allies, Rykid and Nalika. You can use up some of your D counter to get rid of the allies first, but whatever you do, do not use your D counter on Vexacion. As a regen, he has absolute defense, which can only be broken through very long combos before actually dealing damage. And none of the attacks in the dragon form has a decent combo. Well, I suppose you could use the D-breath, but it is way too risky, so do not bother using your D counter on him. Here is my personal method to defeat him. First of all, beware of his move Quint Wake. If the attack is focused on only one party member, it will most definitely kill them. Which is why after you defeat Rykid and Nalika in the dragon form, you should revert back to normal, and then group together so that the attack damage will be more divided. That way, each member is less likely to be knocked out, but remember to have plenty of tonics just in case. You should let Ryu make most of the combos by conserving your AP, then remember to use the discharge move if any attack damage is dealt to him. The fight may seem quite tight and tedious, as you'll near death quite a few times, but just remember to be stocked on heals and tonics and you should be fine. Alright, this is where things become important to your D counter. When you finally arrive at the Geofront Low sector, you will fight Bosch yet again. He has a lot more variety than his basic roster of attacks and is kind of stronger than before, but can actually be defeated pretty easily. First, you will want to focus on attacking with Ryu the most, as he'll do the most damage. You can use Nina to transfer her AP to Ryu via the transfer skill. You can get the skill in Power 1, which can be obtained by stealing it from a rescue mech. Once you transfer all of Nina's AP to Ryu, use that AP to do some long and powerful combos. And remember to let Bosch attack Ryu every so often to bank that damage with the discharge move. But my main point is to not use the D-dive just yet, and for a good reason. After the fight, Bosch will transform into a dragon form of his own. Note that Nina and Lin will do nothing in this fight, and neither can Ryu until he D-dives. This is a fight that requires a minimum of 13% of your D counter. First, make sure that you have enough AP. You'll need at least 90 attack points. Transform into the Dragonized form, do 2 D charges, which greatly increase your damage. After that, do 3 twisters and 1 vortex, which should easily finish him off before he even does his first action. If done with these specific steps, you should consume 11.50% of the D counter. Assuming you're at 98.50% within the conclusion of this fight, you should be good, as is all you'll need against Cheddar-Eye. Your only option is to use the D breath and let your D counter reach 100%. It's supposed to happen, so do not worry. Those are the fights you can use your D counter. Second phase Tantra and Boost Bosch are optional, Raiken and Nalika are recommended, and Dragonized Bosch is required with at least 13% of your D counter left. Any other fight that is not in the list I just mentioned, do not bother using your D counter on those. You should be able to defeat all of the others with patience. Here's an important thing to keep in mind. Like Vexacion, do not D-dive on any of the other regions ever, because they will always have the absolute defense, which can only be broken through long combos, often ending with the strongest moves. For example, never D-dive on Demoned, Hortensia, or Elion. Basically, all the enemies you fight that have absolute defense, don't ever D-dive on them. All in all, if you can make it all the way to the Dragonized Boss fight with 13% of your D counter left, consider your run a victory. And that's going to wrap up this guide. I really hope you guys enjoyed and that could help y'all out if you ever intend on playing this game. If y'all have never heard of this game or never played it, I promise you will be a treat to experience. It is definitely a game to play if you like Undertale and or Dungeons and Dragons. And I think this game could maybe shine a little more in the gaming community if it had some more followers of it. But that's going to wrap up this video. I really hope you guys enjoyed. And yes, my voice just cracked. It wouldn't be a Bubba Boss video if it didn't. So, hallelujah. If you did enjoy, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more PlayStation 2 related content like this and even live streams. Thanks for watching, everyone. This is Bubba Boss signing out.